Player Will.
Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. Hopefully better late than never. The Halloween Alaya review. I was on vacation for about 5 days. I was having microphone issues for a week and a half, but hopefully at least have a video out here for you to look at in hindsight if you want to get to know the character better, or if you're just getting her built out now and you're ready to use her, hopefully this can help. So today's review, pretty standard things here. The character overview, we'll go through the stats, the report card, the should you pull, the general thoughts, which is more of a pros and cons attempt this time. I thought that was a little easier way to think of the character. We'll go through the job overview, the TMR, the job-based vision card eligibility, some general optimization from an equipment perspective, my favorite teams, and then some Truststone optimization. So kicking things off, the character overview. As a brand new lightning unit added to the game, she's got the unique main job of Conjoiner, with Scholar and Kotodama Wielder as the sub-jobs. She does equip maces, which has been some time since we've seen a new mace unit. She also equips hats, cloths, and accessories with a move of 3, jump of 1 as a 70 cost unit, with an absolute definite 97 faith recommendation. She is a magic damage dealer. Now her max range on the kit is 5 squares away. She's got 1 AoE ability and 3 single target abilities. Resistance wise, it's really just the negative 10% to pierce and the minus 5% to missile. Those are ones to look out for, but it's decently strong in some of the more meta damage types with the slash and magic at the 20%. The ailment resistance of 50% to both immobilize and sleep, certainly two very topical ones. I do like that. The instant death one is kind of whatever for the 10%, but I'll at least take these two. Now the mastery ability, they gave her the 20% magic res pen and 10 crit evade, and the dream ability, she's got 15% AoE wide res for both physical and magic damage types, 30% reaction block as well. I generally like this overall for a 70 cost unit here. Now stat wise, we are in kind of this new era where even our 70 cost units look pretty darn good stat-wise. In base perspective, overall in a pretty decent spot. You'll notice she is a step down from the 100 cost units in terms of the buckets, where normally a lot of these newer units are at the 4250 to 4500 HP. The magic stat is usually in one of these much higher buckets. Even the dexterity and the luck in particular tends to be a smidge higher. Nothing crazy, but just a smidge higher. She's honestly not that bad though. When you look at the base stats and then even add in the board nodes here, there's not necessarily weaknesses per se. They're still relatively competitive, just not at the 100 cost level, but still much better than the majority of the cast of characters in the game. They gave her a ton of HP on her board, actually. Kind of surprising that her HP is like one of the strongest things about her, and it kind of has to be because she's not a unit with any real self-sustain in the kit. A little bit light on the dexterity, which we're going to see again in a second, but the agility overall, this is another one where it's okay, it could be worse, it could be better. Without her agility passive, she's basically in the middle, where most units end up at around 78 agility. When you do have that passive of 12%, and these are assuming you're having the vision cards in the main and sub slot, she does go up to another tier. It's salvageable. It's not fast by any means though, but certainly is at least kind of competitive with the overall turn rotation. The other stats here, again, that critical hit rate is not something she's known for. Not only does the dexterity not there, but there's no real critical hit rate nodes on her board. So she ends up, I would say, well below average in the crit rate department. The crit avoidance rate is in a healthy spot though, in part because of that 10% from her mastery ability. So that is something that's good for her. The accuracy too, honestly, not in a bad spot. Innately speaking, she starts off in a really good accuracy spot, and she does have a passive to give her more. You may not always have it on. And so if you don't have it on, you can think of where my cursor is there as where her accuracy is as compared to some of the other more accurate units. So it's really not awful, but not top of the charts. The evasion perspective, to me, not really there because the vision card support isn't there, but she's on that bottom edge of the gradient. And with all the power creep in the accuracy we've seen nowadays, this isn't really a strong evade percentage anymore like it was when Joom first came out. Now for the report card, I'm not going to go through every single one of these, just some of the important ones. The effective HP, this is like one of the more confusing ones to think about because she's got no defense or spirit, no AoE or unit res, and the 15% AoE wide res for both types is very nice. The asterisk there, though, is because of her passive ability, which gives her 40% physical and magic reduction for 3 hits. So that effective HP is actually significantly higher with that 40%. I'm not considering that 40% in this current grade, though, if only because after 3 hits, that's her new form, if you will. And so at worst, it's a B+. At best, it's much higher. This is definitely offset though with the survivability, which to me is an F. This is atrociously bad for this unit. Although she is courage capable and can seal enemy removal of that, and she is protect and shell capable and can seal enemy protect removal, she's got no reliable heal back. The -5 hate on her passive is really the only good thing about targeting that in this select 2 era, that she will be typically the last one targeted by those, but there's no barrier other than the third buff in the Kotodama subjob. There's really not a lot there for survivability. And compared to modern units, it's noticeably a step back, which aligns with the glass cannon persona that you're going to hear us refer to as, because the damage is an A. The unit resistance penetration is huge, particularly after her limit break. It's the highest any character can get to in the game. The spirit pen is there, the magic res pen is there. You'll likely be at 70% magic res pen most of the time throughout the fight. She'll ideally be hasted because she can seal haste removal as well, so that uptime for turn order is certainly going to add to the damage numbers throughout the fight. So I like the damage. Everything else is fine. I think there's really nothing to point out that I haven't kind of encompassed in already in some of the statistical conversations. I'll jump down to the auto ease of use and the game disruption. The thing for me is that the team building for her is a little bit tough, if not niche, and because she's a glass cannon, if you're not using her properly in terms of spacing, in terms of turn order, you can get punished pretty easily and not see the results that she can be capable of. And for the game disruption, I do think she's coming in at a decent time for Exia and the future Nickel unit that are going to be abound, that as another very competitive lightning unit, she does have a very strong niche to potentially go against them, but I do think she'll struggle in some more general PvP content. The passives and counter abilities are fine. The passives are pretty decent, but you got a tough second choice to pick from. The overall job in kit, B- for me. Although she does lots of damage and has some decent enough imperils here with the lightning imperil, she has this like odd reliance on elemental chain damage reduction for enemies, and that's just such like an inconsistent way to do damage. It could potentially work, but the reliability of it is just so like niche. I don't know how else to say it. She's got some universal utility, but some niche utility, and I think that hurts her, in my opinion. For the final grade of a B, she's a very solid 70 cost contributor. I think she's currently one of the better lightning units overall. Lots of pros, but also lots of worrying cons, and we're going to go through these now. I'm not going to read these word for word, but the great thing about her is that she can seal 3 things. She can seal protect, courage, and haste. 3 in 1 is enormous, and she has all 3 of those in her kit. She can dispel enemy haste on hit, not only for her, but for her allies, which is also a very necessary dispel type in the current game. She does get that above average damage potential, which I was talking through those penetrations. The subjob flexibility is certainly nice too. I actually do like the variety of subjobs they've given her. I do think there's a time and place for all 3 of them. The confusion on her limit break is underratedly large. And this is a great example. JB79 loves to use this one as well. Let's say you use your limit break and you nuke an enemy Shreka who's wearing the wizard rod, who gets the CT up. Well, normally Shreka would get her turn immediately and then go attack your units. Now all of a sudden, if Shreka gets her turn, she'll be confused and she just won't do anything with that extra turn. So there is some good upside. It's not my favorite status ailment, but that limit break is a good early team fight swing. The other pro is that there is lots of chaining in her kit to synergize with that decrease of elemental chain res I was talking about, but that's elemental chain res, so it's reliant upon lightning units attacking together. But when you pair it with someone like Ramada, where you're getting up to chains of 5 or 6, that's anywhere from like 12 to 15% increased damage on those enemies. That does add up rather significantly. The 25% lightning imperil also is great for Ramada to increase her damage potential. But now the cons. 2 out of the 4 main job abilities have cast time, and her cast time reduction is pretty bad. Let's just say that much. There's no real self-sustain, definitely not to the bar that most units have. The accuracy is good, but it does need investment. She does have a TP ability that I think is fun, that we'll talk about soon, but there are some other concerns that I have with her. Damage overall, that there's no shell removal, there's no magic damage percent reduction removal. Her barrier break capability is very subpar. It is technically on one of the subjobs, but it's just one ability on a subjob. It's not ideal. The other thing here is that the Mace vision cards and Rainbow synergies are rather limited. Her vision card is really one of the driving factors in how she can be used current days, and the lack of any kind of move or jump is always a strike for me, that as these maps change, having some versatility for how you can adjust your movement does allow you to thrive in a handful of different metas. Now for should you pull, I say no. Now, while she is one of the best current Lightning units, I don't think she makes for a good long-term investment outside of cost-limited formats. I think she really can be best for you if you are already heavily into Ramada in particular, but even Lightning in general. If you have Lucille, if you have Fang and want to run some double Pierce teams, not great, but if you have it, this is the spot to use it. I think that's really where she shines. And while she is a glass cannon, her utility is good with the triple seal. I just don't think there's anything there that you can't replicate elsewhere with other 100 cost units based on what we have currently and what we'll likely be getting in the future. You will get use out of her if you pull her, though. I just don't think you get the same return on investment as the upcoming units and vision cards. And she also kind of requires her vision card to work as well. So that amplifies the need for the total cost for just a 70 cost unit. It's a good unit. I have her. I'm enjoying using her. Should everyone be pulling her? No. Now, getting into the job and the passive abilities, this top passive is like an S tier passive. This is exceptional for what it does for her offensively with the different kinds of penetrations and the reduction in physical magic damage. This is where I think you get complicated after that because the second passive, it's tough. I would love to have the agility of 12% on all the time, but that accuracy of 20 you can't underrate enough. That is a big part of her hitting even some of these pseudo evasion teams that we're seeing with all the luck percent cards, not even talking about the reduction in cast time passive, which I just think unfortunately falls short compared to the other second options. And the counter abilities, I don't like this one. The reactivity and drain, this is a preemptive ability. It's only a 30% proc chance though, which is far lower than what we're used to seeing. With all the reduced counter chance, I think the odds of this going off are far diminished. And although it absorbs 50% of the damage done, it's a 121% mod on a typeless magic attack that's only like 3 squares away. You're not absorbing that much damage. So the preemptiveness is really the best thing about this, but the counter abilities aren't great. For the main job buffs, I do like these overall. There is this nice agility buff to party. You can dispel haste for herself and allies, as we talked about. You have courage and 20% increased magic damage for her, which is pretty freaking large. You also have the haste upon self when you fall below a certain HP threshold, and protect ceiling for self with the protect and shell on this ability. So these two buffs are absolute musts to get her working at the level that she needs to. For the abilities themselves, there are 3 single target abilities, 1 AoE ability, 2 of them have the cast time. You do have this pierce attack here for that triple hit, which again is where I see the synergy with Ramada to build up this pierce chain of 5 or 6, depending upon who else is in your team. But these bottom 2 abilities are amazing. The third one here is the select 2. It's the lightning apparel, it's the decrease of chain res, it's the seal of enemy ability to remove haste, and the ability to seal their courage removal too. So this one is exceptional as a double hit. This bottom one here is also a dispel re-raise and is her 40 magic res pen. So this 40 with the 20 from her 140 upgrade and the 10 from a Truststone passive potentially gets her to 70 throughout most of the fight. So I do like what this tends to offer overall for main job offensive abilities. The cast time though, this is where I find things to be difficult because even if you have a Truststone passive on to reduce it by 200, that changes neither of the breakpoints for either of these abilities. So you don't even need that Truststone passive because it's not going to do anything for you here. It's not until you either use her job passive or an Esper that has the additional cast time reduction of 200 that you can finally get down to a second breakpoint. So I don't love that part of her kit. I think that's a legitimate con. There's some ways to handle it, but it's not for everyone. Now for the limit break, this is another exceptional ability that's another select 2. It's an additional 40 unit res pen for 3 turns on a massive 240% modifier with the very high chance to confuse. You will likely be confusing everyone every single time when you use this. Don't sleep on it. Not the best status effect, but definitely a great early fight just to throw some chaos and potentially allow your enemies to miss their turns. Or when you attack a confused enemy, you do extra damage as well. So that's a good chance for her teammates to follow up on some of these enemies in a more potent manner. Now for the conjoiner subjob, this one's not awful. This cast time here is the same as the cast time on the top 2 abilities on the main job, so similar breakpoints. This one here is the decrease of all attack resistance, which is kind of nice that it is just a flat 15% reduction. This will help Ramada, who's doing pierce damage. This will help if you're using Bridal Alaya. That'll help the strike resistance that enemies have. So I do think this is an interesting one. It's not my favorite, but I like it. The Toad ability, though, is very fun. If you did decide to go the route and just drop all accuracy whatsoever on Halloween Alaya, I think there's a pretty good chance that she might use this in a battle to select an enemy or two and just toad them because no one's really defending against that. It's only the 25% chance, so it's not a guarantee, but I think it's a fun theory craft thing to think about. But I think ideally, I'm likely using the Scholar subjob for the Magic Barrier Break, the decreased healing power. This is another one with a cast time ability on it, the Devitalizing Glint. I don't really love any of the rest of the abilities here in the Scholar sub. I'd really just use it for the Magic Barrier Break, and to that end, because I'm not in love with this, I really think Kotodama is the way to go. I do like having the option of the third buff, that's the Magic Barrier, the AoE resistance, but I like having that 100% hit chance there just to ensure you can do some damage at the most critical times in the fight. I'm personally using Kotodama Wielder. Now for the TMR review, this is an accessory that's not awful. I mean, the stats on it are okay. It's the extra magic stat, the crit evade. The ability itself is the 25 human killer with the very niche on-hit effect of decreasing elemental chain res by another 25 for 3 turns. And this will stack with what's in her kit. So again, it's like mathematically okay. This is likely better for, I guess, PvE content if you're trying to accumulate chains, but this is a very not great PvP ability. It's just not reliable enough to use overall. I don't think the damage upside really gives you all that much impact either. Now, for the job-based vision card synergies, this is one of the tougher things for Mace. They have not gotten any vision cards in quite some time. And so many of their pairings are kind of outdated in how good they are in the current state of the game. Spear is definitely the strongest synergy. Gun and Dagger are definitely there too. But again, Gun and Dagger units, are you kidding me? Not a great selection there. Fist and Sword Knight has the bones of working in a Rainbow Party. It's still not great, but when you look at all the other magic type classes, the Staff Black Mage, it's fine. It's not great. The Book class is fine. It's really just the VV Vision card holding that synergy together, which is an S tier vision card, so that can't be slept on. But Staff Devout's got nothing in common with it, so it is a little more difficult to mix and match with some of these other magic oriented classes. This to me is one of the biggest weaknesses of a Mace unit overall. Her unique equipment, the broom, I don't even want to spend time talking about this. I really don't think this is that good. There's too much AoE res pen and AoE crush in the game that I don't think 8 AoE resistance means a whole lot. The magic res pen is whatever. This ability here, as far as I understand it, is that you can absorb 30% of the damage only once when you fall below 50% health. No thanks. That's not nearly good enough in my opinion. Way too dependent on turn order and healing power and all those other things. To me, if I'm going for general equipment optimization, I'm going with the Zeus Mace from the Reliquary stages. I do think the Dawn Lantern is a really good second option, but Zeus Mace I think is the easiest. The other equipments, I do like White Marshmallow for her, given the amount of status effects that are floating around at the moment, that this does have some accuracy on it too, so I do like that. I also like her as a bow tie unit, that she's not the greatest frontline unit. She doesn't have any real bulk to her like some other units do, so the producer's bow tie to allow her to lag behind a little bit with that potential negative hate, I think is a really good thing for her that'll counteract some of the hate on the bow tie. The Espers, I think Dark Ramu or Bahamut are my two favorites. I do like Orochi for the cast time down personally, because there is also the reaction block rate in some magic attack nodes. The Voltus Esper, although a physical Esper, does have the lightning attack up on it, and I do like the magic damage reduction node on it, so that's kind of more like an anti-magic angle for it. The bottom ones here are okay. They're not my favorites. I have a couple here for the sake of accuracy, like Shinryu and Ramu. Europa is a relatively solid lightning magic Esper, and Garuda, although seems like it'd be a good fit for the unit res pen, I don't love the rest of the nodes on it for her. So although the unit res pen is cool, I think the rest of the board is relatively subpar for her compared to the other options. And the TMRs, I'm personally going for an agility TMR, just because she's kind of that step below where most other units are. But there are some TMR options that I don't hate. I actually like the Black Rose Helena TMR that gives the shield, because she's got no barrier innately. Even the Gilgamesh TMR here, that's the Honeycomb barrier, I like that for her survivability, because she really doesn't have a ton elsewhere once some of those things wear off or get broken. I like some of the offensive ones here, like the Dark Phoenix shoes for the magic res pen and the cast time reduction. Obviously seems nice on paper, but I think you have a variety of TMRs to choose from. These are just some that immediately came to mind. Now, for some of my favorite teams, this is the other very difficult thing, because it's just genuinely not all that many. I mean, these top two are virtually identical. It's just depending upon what support you want to use. This top team is more mono lighting, so there's some better vision card synergy, but Summer Resnick obviously does a totally different job than Lucille does in how she supports her team. So I think both of those are very compelling options. I think this third team is some absolute copium, though, for a mono mace team that's really just pigeonholed to taking down magic teams, which, you know what, could be decent. We've seen enough Exia Sodali or Sodali Crimson Wizard teams that maybe this team does have a small niche. Not my favorite, but I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel here because I don't know what other team you'd put her in other than just some random mono lightning teams, which to this point, lightning units are relatively far behind the power creep of the game. I have this note here in the bottom right that Bridal Alaya is an option, but I do think that Bridal Alaya and Halloween Alaya with any random third unit would struggle to beat the field or beat the majority of other top end team iterations that you're seeing. So this kind of remains to be seen what the future brings for her. And so for the Truststones, to me, the left side, I'm going HP or luck, just for the accuracy from the luck perspective. Give her all those status elements. I'm assuming the Zeus Mace here for this Truststone configuration. So the right side, I'm going the Magic 20%, the Spirit Pen at 10. I'm going Modifier heavy with Magic Res Pen and the Lightning Attack 10, the Magic Attack 10. Throwing in the Reaction Block rate of 20. Could you go for Healing Power 10 or Accuracy 10? Maybe. I don't know if it's all that impactful, though. I'm really trying to min-max her damage, though, just based on what kind of character she is. And that's the Halloween Alaya review altogether. Again, it's an actually relatively good unit. It is a good 70 cost unit. It is a really good lightning unit. I don't know if it's worth the Visior expenditure, given how limited she can be for team building purposes and how much stuff we have coming out in the game. So those of you that have pulled her, I'm sure you'll get some usage out of her. I have no doubt about that. But for the longevity of the game, this is a unit who I could see kind of fading fast unless they do other things to kind of improve some of the mace overlap, or at least adding another really compelling spear unit that you might be able to go mace and 2 really good spear units, where right now we really only have 1 really good spear unit. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll have some new content for Final Fantasy Tactics coming out soon. I'll talk to y'all later.